Am I going to make it or not? Make what? Wouldn't it be a good idea to clarify the question itself? Am I ever going to make it? Where do you suppose that anxious question comes from? I'll tell you where it comes from. It comes from the B2 class with Mrs. Jones, when you couldn't quite get that little lesson in elementary arithmetic that 2 blocks and 2 blocks make 4 blocks, and all the other kids seemed to know it, but you didn't. Am I going to make it? Maybe I'm inferior, maybe I'm dumb, maybe I'm stupid, maybe I'll never get it. Now multiply that by 50,000 experiences just in school alone, to say nothing of your career later on, or how you make a living, or your social affairs. If you ever flopped, and you know, we flopped in the kindergarten, didn't we? Am I going to make it in order to get along with that boy or that girl in the next chair? Forever asking the question, not knowing that it's a false question. It is always a false question. There are no exceptions to it. To ever ask, am I going to make it? Because you don't even know what you're talking about. You don't know what you want. There is something in you that says this is what you want, but this saying, I, self, entity, is not you at all. It says, you had better get a smile from that man, from that woman, so that you will feel okay, feel loved, feel liked, feel accepted by someone else. How come it doesn't last? So you feel good that the person next to you smiled at you and seemed to accept you as you are. Now all you have to do is convince 10 million other people in the town. By the way, this is what causes 2 or more people to huddle, to try to convince themselves that the smiling between each other is real. Now, folks, today we're all going to meet together, whether in the woman's club or the man's club or the legionnaire meeting or whatever, church meeting, social meeting. And guess what we're going to do today? We're going to all do and say the right thing. Right? Good evening. That's a nice new coat you have. Well, I like your hairdo too. Never, never, whatever you do, never notice that people have bad manners, for example. Never notice that little cutting remark that one woman made about that man. Never notice or never ever say that man is an egotist sitting there puffing his cigar in everybody's face, telling everybody how important he is. Never see through that. Instead, nod at him. Never run the risk. Whatever you do, please, if you want to be safe, never run the risk of offending anyone. Then they'll all love you and they'll all destroy you. And that's the story of human life. Fred, please. Love you or killing you. Any questions so far? Anything we've talked about? Like to make any comments? Go ahead, Al.
You were telling us it would be helpful if we could distinguish between success and failure.
Yes.
But you got interrupted. Could you give us a little more on that?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and at least till Fred Fred isn't here, is he?
He's on his way.
Yeah. I told you, where do you get your idea of what success is? Or what failure is? Either one. You're just as much victimized by success as by failure, and vice versa. Because they're both mere words, mere ideas that you've set up that's going to make you liked. That's going to give you something to do with your mind to think about. He likes me. She loves me. Society gave me some medals. I will tell you that all our ideas of success and failure are going to have to be completely destroyed. And they will be destroyed. That is, they will fall away of themselves when you begin to have the courage to put yourself through what you don't want to go through. That will destroy all your ideas about success or failure, and will also, what's your reaction to this? It will also give you no future at all. Wouldn't it be nice to have no future? No? No? What if you had no future? What would you think about? I'm not talking about the future of shopping tomorrow or writing that report for the boss. That kind of a future is necessary. I'm talking about the future of you as you now conceive yourself to be. What if you, as you now understand yourself to be, had no tomorrow at all? You'd be free. You'd be marvelously free from all the sickness and the naggings and the headaches and the heartaches that attacked every other human being. And we get to this point. Maybe this isn't clear to some of you new people, and I'll cover it. Then we'll go on to something else. You see, there is good news for you here right tonight. Right tonight at 5 after 7, there's marvelous good news for you, which is this. You don't have to be afraid. If you had no future, you would have no fear. It is your demand for a future that causes fear. Because you want to keep you as you conceive yourself of being. You want to not only carry you into tomorrow, but you want to increase the vibrations, the force of what you call you, which creates tension and fear. You feel a certain security in having your family or having your employment, having your youth or whatever. You feel a certain security in that. And so the idea of not having it tomorrow makes you afraid. And this, in turn, makes us false. First toward ourselves and then toward everyone we meet. We want to please people so that we'll have them for our friends or boyfriend or girlfriend or wife or husband tomorrow. What if you were cut off from all that? Not non-existent. You'll still be here. You'll still be living. You'll still be conducting your business. You'll still be in your family life. What if you had no future at all as you now conceive the future? You would walk fearlessly and lightly through every step of your day. There's no one there to be afraid. If there's no one there to be afraid, how can that no one find something out there to fear? So you're going to fire me tomorrow, boss? So you fire me. I'll sell firewood to get 50 cents to buy bread. I'll keep the physical body alive. Go ahead, fire me if that's what it's up to you. You're going to leave me, wife, husband, boyfriend, girlfriend. Parents are going to die. Children are going to leave the nest. I really don't know what that has to do with me. My sense of self is not invested in you, dear mother, dear child, dear husband, dear friend. My sense of self is not invested in my idea of God even. All right. A little story, an illustrative story. Here's a husband and wife living together out in the country somewhere. And he works at a distance from there, 50 miles away perhaps. Good deal of driving to work every day, right? But every night he comes home, drives the car into the driveway and gets out, comes home and lives a normal life. Every morning gets in the car and goes out to work 50 miles away. Evening drives back again. One night, when he drives the car in the driveway, gets out, comes in the house, she notices that he has a bruise on his face and he's limping a little bit. And she says, well, what's the matter? What happened? He brushes it off. Yeah, nothing. Forget it. What's for dinner? I hope you made what I wanted. Let's have dinner. So it passes over, and a week or so later, same thing. He comes into the house, and his fingers are banged up in some way, and his head is a little bruised. He looks as if he had some trouble somewhere along the way. She says, what's the matter? What happened to you? Something, obviously. And he, forget it. Hey, let's get baseball games on at 7. Let's get on. So this goes on for several times. He comes home all bruised and banged up a little bit. And she begins to be a little concerned with it because he doesn't seem to be paying any attention to something that's going wrong with him. So she keeps after him a little bit, tries to get him when he's a little quiet, when the baseball game isn't on, and after dinner. She says, look, I don't understand. You've been coming home last seven or 8 nights, all hurt in some way, in a small way at least, and you've been brushing it off. Well, please, what's it all about? And he brushes it off again, and she keeps after him again, persists after him. And she keeps after him so often that he can no longer avoid the probing, no longer avoid the questioning. So, but instead of answering her, he begins to investigate inwardly. He begins to face the fact, that's right. Last night I came home. I came home with a limp. I'd hurt my knee in some way. And I had a headache from banging against something. So in the quietness of the night there, he begins to think about how he's getting hurt. So he thinks long and hard about it, and he begins to think about his day. He starts off with, goes to work in the morning. He gets off at 4:30 or 5. It takes an hour to drive home through partly freeway, partly some hills where he takes a shortcut and across the dirt road, and finally he gets home. And it finally occurs to him that on the way home, because his mind has been distracted by some bears running out in the field there, or some pretty girls walking down the street, he's been careless in his driving. He's not paying any attention to it at all. And so he bumps into a tree, or he goes too fast through a little wet creek in the country road, something like that. And he begins to understand that the way he has been driving, the way he's been behaving, because his attention was distracted from his driving, that his unconscious driving was the cause of his bruises. And he begins to think about it, and he begins to be surprised that he couldn't quite see this, because the distraction of the pretty girls and the bears and the big advertising sign was powerful enough to prevent him from paying attention to the road and then paying attention to the fact that he got a little banged up. So he begins to put two and two together. Now, even on the simple level of driving, he begins to see why he gets hurt. Not only that, but he begins to see that while he was distracted by the animals running out in the field or by the pretty girls, while he was distracted, he had a certain unconscious anxiety in him that something could happen because he wasn't paying attention to what he was supposed to be paying attention to. So, to end the illustration and then shift it over to our lives, being an honest man, he says, you know, you're quite right. I've been careless, and here's what happened. So he tells her exactly what happened. Now, that might not go so far as to happen like that in daily life, but I will guarantee you one thing, quite surely, of which our own lives are the perfect evidence, that this is precisely what we are doing in our day, which is this. Being distracted, being so excited by that sight out there or the sight in here. It's just easy to create a picture in here, a dream, an imagination, an expectation. Being so distracted by that, we can't see the 101 bumps and, for the most part, minor injuries that we get during the day. In short, we don't know that we've been in a wreck. We don't see it. We don't want to talk about it. It's very humiliating to the ego to admit that it has been the cause of the accident. And we fight that for all we can fight, all our strength, to prevent ourselves seeing that I, in my present state, am the cause of what happens to me. Now you take a big leap here tonight. Do you know there's been one cause of what happened to you and you and you and you and you today? One cause. And that cause is our present level of misunderstanding. Another way to put that is our present level of unconsciousness, of not seeing what we're doing because we have these thousands of marvelous illuminations, we can call them, false illuminations, bright lights, glaring lights, which take us away from driving one block at a time. You try it sometime, just even on the everyday level, you'll see what the illustration is getting at. You drive that one block at a time without looking at the balloon up in the sky, without looking over there at some sight over there, and be aware of everything. I'm talking about actual car driving now. And be very alert to everything that's happening on that street. Those children back there, watch out. They could run out in front of that car before you knew it. Unless you're dreaming about something, they might do it, and you might hit those little children. You'd be very aware of everything that's happening in that one block. All right, that's that illustration. Can't you watch, and you can indeed do so, watch what's happening to you in just the next 5 minutes by the clock? What are you doing? I'm taking the spoon and putting it in the coffee, putting it into the cup. I put it down. I take the sugar, my hand goes there, I put the sugar in, I put it down. I'm doing this in slow motion so I can see it better, by the way. I put the water on. When it's hot, I pour it like that. And even when I pour the coffee, I begin to see how previously I got injured because I was distracted and wasn't paying attention to what I was doing. My injury being I spilled it over the edge of the cup. It spilled over the edge. But I'm slowing that down so I can begin to see how previously, when I was nervous and anxious and thinking about something, that I put more water in than I should have, and it spilled over, and then I got irritated, and I get the napkin and cleaned it up, and I say, no, I'm not going to do that anymore, and I did it again the next day. You try the experiment of slowing yourself down for just 5 minutes. If you do it for 5 minutes, you'll begin to see the point of what we're getting at. And what you'll see. You'll see some awful things you wouldn't believe about yourself. that you attracted that sarcastic comment from that man, because you had it in you, in your manner, even though you didn't say anything. Or you attracted that pouncing from that person because the very way you walked up to him or her said, "I am weak, pounce on me." Now, what's the point of all this? If you can begin to see, if I can begin to see how I am presently causing my bruises, my accidents, by tracking them back, by watching them daily, begin to see how something in me that was careless was allowing them to happen. This is the law of accident that we've talked about, by the way. Something careless in me allowed them to happen. I can begin to correct it by simply being conscious, by being aware of what I'm doing, what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling at every minute. You'll be surprised how in little everyday things like the coffee incident, things begin to correct themselves. But most of all, this is a preliminary step. Once you begin to see, once we begin to understand how we've caused our own negative echoes by sending them out in the first place. I am negative, I send out the word comes back as an echo because that's what I sent out. When I begin to see that this is what I'm doing, careful now, I don't start to send out positive messages to get positive messages back. It's much higher than that, believe me. If this was a positive thinking class, this is where we would go from there, saying I send out loving thoughts to you so that you get them back to me, which means I've kept myself in self-deception. What happens is that I cease to try to do anything for myself, excite myself with my distractions. I cease to try to build myself, build a future for myself in any way at all. So that instead of trying to build a positive self, I begin to understand that it's not necessary, that all I have to do is to understand the negative self, and I can understand that through my agony very easily. My own pain is telling me, if I have brains enough to listen, where I'm going wrong. Wake up, man, wake up, woman. Can't you see what you're attracting? Don't you know that when you're arrogant, that it first comes from out of your fear? And then when you're arrogant, you cut off all real relationship with other people. Some of you in this room can't relate rightly with other people because there's too much wrong with you. Not just in this room. Having seen how we're sending out these wrong words that echo back to us, we see sending them out because we see that we are indeed going to do one thing. We're going to get back exactly what our nature really, really, really is. You can't kid yourself. I can't fool myself. If I get a constant stream of problems, a constant stream of anxieties, I am sending them out, and not only am I sending them out into the outer world to come back to me. Not only am I sending them out, but I am the very trouble itself. I'm the very problem itself. All this, you know, of course, is quite unacceptable to the old nature which is now dominating all of you in this room. What I just said is unacceptable to the nature by which you presently live, which is why, while you heard the words, and you may have even nodded your head to it, you may have even said, I've heard that before. You may have even said that's a good spiritual law, which it is. While you nodded your head mechanically, there's a very large, dark part of you that has no intention of going all the way with it, because you're too much in love with having troubles. You see, you understand, do you not, that if you cause yourself a problem, then the problem itself becomes a marvelous escape. The pain of the problem becomes a marvelous escape, distraction from facing what you don't want to face, which is to see that you caused that problem. So you can take the pain and twist it according to your own vanity. Why do you treat me that way? Is one of them. I'm suffering because of the way you talk to me. I feel empty and lonely because people are cold. Oh, they're cold. You're merely describing yourself, by the way, when you describe someone else, unless you're doing it quite consciously, which is very difficult to do, but which you can do in time. Let me tell you a solution to all this, among other solutions. You're going to have to begin doing the exact opposite of what you have been doing up to this point in your life. You just watch and see how the rest of the world lives, and then you make up your mind that you're going to do the exact opposite of that. Let's see if I can get an example. In ordinary life, if there's a fort on a hill manned by 1,000 soldiers, powerful fort up on the hill, 1,000 soldiers up there. And there's one soldier, opposite army, enemy soldier, down the bottom of the hill, and he wants to capture that. Well, that one soldier down at the bottom of the hill isn't going to rush up the hill to charge 1,000 men with their rifles pointed at him. What he will do is run back to the sergeant, who runs to the lieutenant, who runs to the colonel, who runs to the general, and says, they've got 1,000 men up there. Let's get 5,000 and charge the fortress. Take it. Succeed. In other words, let's always put the odds in favor of ourselves. All right. That's the way the world works. Let's get all the pressure groups we can. Let's get all the people together who think as we do and conquer the world, or what little part of it we can manage to conquer. This is the way the world works. This is the way the world thinks, because it's sick. It has no choice but to think this way. Machines have no choice but to think like machines. We in this class have determined to do something different. We're tired of coming home bruised and not knowing the cause of it. We're tired of getting headaches and heartaches. And we want to find the cause of it so we can remove the cause and live at peace. So, I'll tell you what you do, and you'll understand the figure of speech. In the inner battle, this is also what most human beings do. One soldier against 1,000 on the hill, and so they say, the one soldier at the bottom says, let's go get a bunch of other people and let's form a club, let's form a church, let's form a group, and battle this other group, and we'll win the day. Now I'll tell you what you will do from now on. You're going to stand at the bottom of the hill, and you see those 1,000 soldiers up there. All by yourself, you're going to charge. And then after you do that, try to look for a hill where there are 5,000 at the top, and just you, and you charge that. Now you find a hill where there are 500,000 soldiers guarding the top of the hill, and you're all alone, and you charge up that. Do you know what will happen? Do you know what will happen if you reach the top? When you reach up there, this is the what's the end of a gun called? Nozzle.
Muzzle.
Huh?
Muzzle.
Muzzle. Nozzle? This is the muzzle of the gun of one of those 1,000 soldiers. And you rush up that hill, and you just stand right to it like that. And you do that, and all the other 999 are pointed at you. If you get that to that point, 1,000 guns will clatter to the ground in front of you. Do you know what it means to be courageous spiritually? It means to put yourself in the most dangerous position possible and then increase it. You're not in much danger at the bottom of the hill, even if there are 1,000 up there. Anybody can stay down there. You walk up in fear that at any minute they're going to open fire on you. The old heart's going to start pumping hard, huh? Huh? The hands are going to shake, and you're going to wonder how you're so stupid as to do that. Remember, we're talking spiritually now, not out in the world. You walk up to there, and I will guarantee you, this is one thing I will guarantee to you, that when you get up to the top of that hill where the guns are all pointed at you, and you just stand there and defy them to do their worst, they will collapse. Now, you're right, immediately, don't wait, don't stand there and brag about it. You'll go wrong. Oh, you'll go wrong. But we won't go into that. Find the next hill. 5,000 this time. Then 10,000. Then 100,000. Until you understand the nothingness of the power of the visible rifles. When you see that if you defy your own fear, it will collapse right inside of you. Then what are you going to fear? Then it's gone. It's all gone. But you understand the principle. When you're at the bottom of the hill, just a little bit of anxiety. How am I going to get up there? How am I going to conquer the enemy? Not too bad. Your heart's going up normal. The first 20 yards up the hill, it starts to beat a little harder. It gets a little shaky. You wonder what's going to happen to you. What's going to become of me? You see, it's not enough to be afraid at the bottom of the hill, which is where most of us here are waiting for the friendly troops to come up and reinforce us. You must deliberately, in spite of your own resistance and horror at it, increase the terror by walking straight up. And walking straight up that hill is walking straight up inside your own mind, because the rifles are in your own mind, 1 million of them. And you're going to walk right into them, and you're going to say to them, fire any time you want. I'm going to find out what's going to happen to me if I defy you. And it is the simplest task on earth to destroy fear. All you have to do is walk in total fear up toward them. And 1 inch away, they'll collapse. And that will be, and you will go through an inner experience, a spiritual experience you wouldn't have believed possible. You read it in a book and you thought, well, he could do it. Or maybe there's something odd about it or something. Very seriously now, this is the real experience that we all really want, the right parts of us really want. So see how easy it really is? You don't have to be courageous. Who said about being brave? We're not brave. We're scared. I never thought of that. That I can shake and tremble and scream and not want to go and still go. That's it. Why did somebody tell me this? That I can walk up. Just walk up. But what's my inner state got to do with it? I can go. All right, you find practical examples of this. You find, for example, where you don't want to do some small little task because it's new to you, you do that small little task. You see where you want to continue to blab and dominate the conversation, and you have the courage to not dominate it. You see how you're pretending that you understand something, even anything, how to bake a cake, and you're pretending that you understand that, and you defy the fear of exposure that you don't know how to bake that cake. And you simply admit to yourself and to the other person maybe, I don't know how to bake a chocolate cake. See, when you do that, you see that it wasn't necessary for you to pretend that you knew how to make a chocolate cake. They're probably jealous of you anyway if you did know how. But that's not the point. The point is we're destroying a pretense by walking right up to it and saying, I'm going to drop the pretense, I'm going to walk up that hill just to see what happens. And the muzzle of the chocolate cake will crash to the floor. How's that for something? Conscious defiance is the answer. All right, let's take a break. The first one being, it is all so simple. It is all so simple, period. It is all so simple. I need only shake while not caring whether I do or not. I need only shake while not caring whether I do or not. Wouldn't that be marvelous liberty? To just be as trembly, as shaky, as nervous, as terrified, as apprehensive as I am without doing a thing about it? Wouldn't that be a new state? You don't know, do you? Because you don't know that the first little trembling you get at the bottom of that hill, you try to do something about it. Hey, Bill, Tom, get over here. We're in trouble. Never have allies. You know why? Because you don't have any. You know what? You want to know the secret? The dreadful secret? You're at the bottom of the hill. The 1,000 soldiers are up the top of it. And there's 1,000 over in back of you. The 1,000 in back of you are the same enemy army that is up on top of the hill, spiritually speaking. You call on your friends to defeat your enemies, and your friends are your enemies. You don't believe this. You still love your friends. You still want your friends to love you. A reasonably compatible human relationship between a man and a woman, for example, is not the same thing as having a true inner spirit. Anybody can get married, right? And anybody can get unmarried. So what have you accomplished? You've got a piece of paper. And watch how it has no value. It has no value except to the way your mind is working incorrectly. Now I've got the paper. Now you, wife, owe me something. Now you, husband, owe me something. The paper creates demands. I'm not talking in favor or against marriage at all. I'm talking against false human relationships. You are on questions, open discussion.
Vernon, is the law of accident and the law of attraction one and the same?
Well, they very much connect, because the law of accident determines who you are attracted to. And you'll be attracted to people on your own level. Yes.
Is conscious defiance as being the answer? Can you
Yes,
explain
yeah,
this more?
right. Simply noticing what you do. Notice what you do. Look, when I'm pouring the coffee, all nervous and excited, because I didn't have brains enough to get up 10 minutes early, I'm too lazy to get out of bed to get to work early on time leisurely, I have to pour the coffee fast, and I'm thinking about other things. Gee, I wonder if I got a flat tire, too. I better check the tire. And so I slop the coffee over the cup, right? I'm going to defy my own haste. I'm going to deliberately slow down. And I can watch. I tell you, you watch it. You may have never done this. You may think you have, but you haven't. You watch as you pick up the spoon and get the coffee into the cup. Then you pick up the water and pour it into that. This is conscious defiance of nervous haste, of unnecessary speed, which even on the everyday level will cost you more time anyway. Maybe get you into one of those wrecks on the way to work. It means simply to notice what is happening to you from moment to moment. Right now, if I ask you if you know that you're in this room, you will say yes. Would you have known it of yourself if I had not brought it to your attention? Aren't you able to be so flexible in your attention here in this room that you can work on yourself even while listening to me and looking up this way at the same time, because you've learned the value of deliberate shifting of your attention, which comes naturally, by the way, when you're not attracted from the outside, when the attention shifts naturally from inside. You ever notice people's heads say, huh, huh, huh? Why? Something happened there, it goes there. The door opens and you all look at the door, someone coming in late, right? Did we answer your question? Somewhat. Yes, please.
Could you talk more about the fear of making it, like in this room, what we're trying to do?
Yes, all right. First of all, you have fear of not making it. Well, how many have a fear of not making it? Let's get down to business here. Fear of not making it. Now, you know what I'm going to say, don't you? Some of you. What do you want to make? What are you talking about? Please, I'm waiting for you to tell me you want to make it. Now, don't you dare give me some spiritual words. I want to be on the cosmic plane of heavenly bliss. What book did you read that in? Go ahead, please. Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
No, you.
Me?
Yes, you.
Making it.
Huh?
Making it. It's like making it out of the everyday routine that we're in, that we trap ourselves into.
Okay, that's fair enough. That's okay. Getting free of our old nature. We can define it. I'm just want you to be very careful that you just don't toss out the proper phrase and then think you understand what you're talking about. Go ahead, Jim.
Well, to follow what she just said, as freedom from mechanical suffering, or to rise above this ordinary thought, and to the point where you can, when he's talking about making it, to get to the point where I can get out of thought, and when I'm not wanting to be there. Or not, needing to be there.
Yes, we understand. Right. Not be trapped by our own intellectual processes masquerading as purpose. Go ahead.
This Vernon Howard tape will be continued now, here on Side 2.
Go ahead, Gordon.
Would you explain how it is that I or Gordon cannot make it?
Well, because there's no Gordon. Who is Gordon? Define yourself to me, please.
I keep changing. I can't define myself.
Yes. take your name alone. Notice how valuable it is, the name. Okay, you were named Gordon as a boy or Chuck as a boy. You're named Gordon or Chuck. It's repeated 1,000 times. You sign your name 10,000 times. Everybody calls Gordon or Chuck to dinner, and the teacher, Gordon, do this lesson or whatever. We begin to think that that sound is me. That sound is me. I actually identify with the sound Gordon. Gordon, well, that's me. That's not Bill or Tom or Harry. That's me. If you could stop right at the minute teacher says Gordon and say something like this, imagine a 3-year-old child saying this, the teacher has spoken the word Gordon. Now that is referring to this physical entity who at birth was given the name of his grandfather, Gordon, and now applies to this particular physical body over in the left part of the room, as in contrast to the other physical entities called Tom, Dick, and Harry. Therefore, I will respond because I am that particular description on the human level. Now that would be marvelous. How many of you were that smart at 3? It doesn't happen that way. Gordon, now watch what happens. Either fear or elation, because you're not quite sure. If you think the teacher is going to scold you, Gordon causes fear. But you gave the most marvelous book report yesterday, and you know, you can kind of tell that's what she's going to compliment you on. Gordon, and then she's going to tell everybody how marvelous you are. All because a word was said, and that word associates with my other experiences, which connects with Gordon. He read the book. He gave a good book report. What if you found out that you don't exist at all, according to your descriptions? Would that be sad to some of you? It would, because you're going to lose the best friend you've ever had. You think what you're going to do is lose the worst enemy you've ever had, which is Vernon or Gordon or Chuck. See, Chuck can't be an alcoholic, or Murray can't be President of the United States. The two don't go together. There's no Chuck there to be an alcoholic or Murray to be President of the United States. There's only accidental factors and people colliding each other and having experiences. But we all think that it's happening to Chuck or Murray. It is happening, but it's not happening to anyone. And if you see that the happening is not happening to you, you are free of it, therefore neither harmed nor, quote mark, blessed by it. But you want the blessing, don't you? You want the teacher to tell you how marvelous you are for the book report, but to bawl you out. You don't want that. You can't have one without the other. Okay, who's on? Anne, please.
I've heard you say in this class on occasion that if we only realized it, we would be out of it or have it made now because we have everything that we need.
Yeah. Do you know what the trouble is? The time self, which is always referring to itself, blocks out the awareness, which is above thought, of eternity. Did you understand what I just said? Chuck is the time self. Let's get another example. Dauphine is the time self. with all these memories and experiences and expectations and shames over past behavior and all that. That's the time self. That's the time self, the word, the name, the experiences connected to them. And they're all connected. The word is always connected with the experience, and that's in time. This is why you are either happy or elated over something that happened in the past and are dreadful or glad over something that's going to happen in the future. Because you're under the delusion that there is a Daphne or a Leland who can go from 1950 to 1960 to 1980 to 1990 until the physical body dissolves. You weren't anybody in 1930. There was a physical body there, and it had experiences. You weren't anybody in 1950 when you were 20 years older, and you won't be anyone 20 years after that. There's only the illusion of time created by the memory of accumulated experiences. I was the valedictorian, whatever that is, in my high school class. And I got a certificate to prove it. That happened 10 years ago, see? That's who I am, the person who gave the graduating speech, top student in the class. That's me. Now I'm worried. That's been 10 years ago and nobody has said anything nice about me since. See? If I'd given the high school class speech and did it consciously, and just gave the talk, because I know I'm in this world and I go along with such foolish things as that. You can't avoid them. There's nothing wrong with them really, but you give up and give the speech. And then when you walk down the aisle, you don't connect yourself with it. Therefore, 10 years from now, you're not trying to perpetuate that marvelous person who gave the speech. He didn't exist. You knew it at the time and you know it now. Therefore, 10 years ahead, you don't have to say, well, 10 years from now, they'll recognize me in some other area and I'll feel better. Go ahead, Lynn. You can feel good right now if you want. That is, if you're willing to have no expectations. Oh, you won't give those up, will you? Are you going to feel, you think you'll feel better a couple of months from now when your business picks up? You know that little plan you have to pick up your business? Then you'll feel better. You're going to feel better a year from now when you finish that education and you go out into the world and get that new employment. You'll feel better later on when you change that human relationship. Get this and watch your reaction, all of you. When you change that relationship that you now feel trapped in. Who do you feel trapped by the way? No, don't raise your hand. Can't you see the pain in feeling trapped by another human being? Go ahead, Tom.
Vernon, can we start life over right now?
Pardon?
Can we start life over right now?
Yes, you can do it right now. Every one of you can do it right now. If you'll cease to think that you are who you imagine you are, which is somebody who got hurt in the past or who got praised in the past, or give up someone who hopes for something in the future or hopes to avoid challenges in the future. Do you know that there's no danger at all to your real nature in the future? Do you know that only your invented self feels a sense of threat from the future? Do you know if you were to go all the way up to the top of that hill that we've been charged up that hill that we've been talking about, you'd have no fear of the future at all, whether it's 1 second or 20 years, if you should live that long. What are you valuing more than your own inner liberty? What are you valuing more than that? Find out and give it up. Dare to let it go. But you have to see it first. How many of you have a lot of, how many vanity? Vanity. Let's see the vain people in the room. Aren't you willing to give that up in order to not go into agony every day, which you now do? Look at the matter of indecision again. It drives you nuts to make up your mind about something. And the happiest moment of your day is when someone makes up your mind for you, tells you what to do. All right, you've got their advice. Now you just have to go right back to where you were before and worry about the next decision. And there are dozens of them throughout the day. Start to make your own decisions in small ways at the start. Pretty soon, you'll get to the point where really now, you won't understand fully what I'm saying. Really, you don't make any decisions at all because there's no need to. Only on the everyday level. I think I'll change the tire today instead of tomorrow, which is not a psychological decision, but simply a practical one in order to keep the car going. But you don't have to make any decisions as to how you're going to feel happier tomorrow than you do today, because tomorrow doesn't exist for you because you don't exist to yourself. Therefore, the question of how you're going to be happier tomorrow can't arise. How can it arise when there's no one there to either be happy or to be unhappy? Then there is a happiness which doesn't involve you at all, which you'll have to see and understand for yourself. Jim, and then Jim, please.
Our only purpose here then is to die to the time self.
Say that again.
Our only purpose is to die to the time self.
Put it that way is just fine.
Now, you die to the time self, right? You have a new awareness, right?
You die to the illusion of the time self, to make it more accurate, but go ahead, yes. Then what was that, Jim?
Then you have a new understanding.
Yes.
Okay, now, then the physical death, the new understanding doesn't whether you have a physical body or not.
If you're not living on the level of the intellect, if you're above the intellect into something higher than that, that higher self can't worry about the physical body. It knows that it is in time and lets it go. If you're identified with your physical body just as you are with your name, then you will be concerned with what's going to become of that, because you have taken that particular 5'2", eyes of blue. You've taken that. Want me to sing? You've taken that as being you. And so now you're afraid. That is me. You can laugh, Connie. Go ahead, please.
Okay, if in fact we are not our names, and we are not our memory, and we are in fact nobody or nothing, explain that to me.
What was that last line?
If we're nobody and we are nothing, and we are not names and we are not memories, explain that to me.
Yeah. Who's asking the question?
God knows.
Do you know who's asking the question? Your intellect.
Yes.
Therefore, it's an invalid question. The intellect is very, very cunning in wanting to protect itself by asking, in one way or another, but who will I be after I climb up the hill? Or what's going to happen to me? You say that I'm not my past, I'm not my future, then who am I? Don't you see that's a false question? And it's always asking anxiety, and any question asking anxiety is false. You're going to have to see through this, and you're going to have to, not just this lady, of course, all of you, going to have to see through the false pleasure you get out of agonizing as to what's going to happen. Tell me what's going to happen. Don't sit there and tell me I'm nobody. Tell me who I'm going to be. Go ahead. Did you hear me?
I want to
Go ahead, please.
one other one, man.
Yeah.
What is there something that does exist then?
How can you find out? How do you suppose you're going to understand that?
A lot of work.
Huh?
A lot of work.
Yes, that's the only answer. There's no way you can understand it by thinking, which is all of your present levels. And you'll vow you're going to think your way out, and I will vow that you're going to torment yourself. Go ahead, please, Steve.
That gets right back to the fear of making it, which is also in the future. So that's a trap right there.
Yes. See, the ego is always... Yes, Norm. The ego is very, very cunningly protected. It wants the guarantee. And we've said many times, we've covered this many times in this class, no guarantee. You're going to have the courage to be without the guarantee, without the allies. You go up that hill all alone. Go ahead, Norm, please.
Yeah, on this. One of the biggest fears then I would have to overcome would be the fear of becoming vulnerable.
Of being what?
Becoming vulnerable.
Vulnerable? Yes, of course. The only way to find out that there's something in you that can't get hurt by anything is start walking up the hill. You are absolutely sure that when you march up that hill for 10 yards, that the rifles are going to blast and kill you. Let me tell you something. I better straighten things out a little bit. When you get 20 yards up that hill, the rifles will blast. You're going to see the fire coming out. They're going to make a dreadful noise. But you know what? You've seen it in movies. Haven't you seen it in movies where someone gets shot? He's on the wall, and the soldier's shooting. He's a spy or something. And the fire comes out, and he thinks he's supposed to drop. Well, look, nothing. There were blanks. See? He said, well, am I dead? What's going on? There will be a terrible noise, which is the devil yelling at you, screaming at you, hey, you're dead, man. See? Well, look around. You're not dead. Keep walking. And they'll blast again when you get halfway up the hill. And they'll get the big cannons out, the big Berthas, pull the lanyards. Don't be bluffed by the horrible noise of the cannon and the fire coming out of the nozzle. Muzzle. See, I learned too. Don't be bluffed by it. You just keep walking right toward it. If you get scared and walk back, you're going to hear the devil chortle. That's C-H-O-R-T-L-E. Who's on? Somebody. Chuck.
Sometimes I'm able to get along with myself, in the room by myself, and then another person enters. It's just like another force. There's friction.
The friction was in you. What's the other person got to do with it? You reacted to them coming in the room. Is he going to hurt me or help me, right? Huh? You're very easily intimidated, Chuck, by looks, for example. Why don't you become aware of that? All right, who's next? If not, I'll add a point, and maybe you'll... yes, Phyllis. 1 second, Phyllis.
While walking up the hill...
Oh, 1 second, please. 1 second, please. I can understand why you're so burdened and sad, because you have the world on your shoulders. I can understand that. But why can't you understand that the world that's on your shoulders is of your own making? That it doesn't have to be there at all. Maybe you like the idea that you're supporting the world. Does that make you feel important? Huh? Are you the center of this world? You're supporting the world, and it's crushing you? The world is not crushing you. Your own delusions are creating the impression of you being crushed. Go ahead, Phyllis, please.
While walking up the hill, the pain begins to increase inside.
Correct.
And the more you walk up, the more pain there is.
Correct.
And it becomes dangerous, I'm feeling also, because sometimes the pain overwhelms. But the thing is to keep on going up the hill until you defeat the pain. It just disappears.
That is correct, yes. And look, could I repeat that, please? It becomes so simple that you should never, ever again ask, what should I do? Because I'll tell you what to do. You just keep marching up that hill straight into those rifles, walking right up into them, and that's all you do. Who cares whether you're scared of being killed or not? That has nothing to do with it. You go. Who cares what's going to happen to me? When are they going to blast? I can see one of the man's hands, even in the distance, curling around that trigger. And I know I can see him squinting. He's got one of these telescope sights. What's that got to do with it? You keep marching up. This is the only way you'll ever find, ever discover for yourself that the devil, darkness, has no power at all. You'll never do it any other way. If you get scared when you see that rifleman's finger go around that trigger and you turn around and run back, or if you get intimidated by those blasts of fire, look, you really can. I'm speaking inwardly now. You just take a look and see what happens to you. Watch what happens inside of you after all 1,000 rifles blast out. And you look inside of yourself and you'll be astonished. You'll see that there's no real injury there at all. The only injury was to your illusion that there was a soldier there who could get killed. When you see there's no one there to get hurt or killed, there's no more killing or getting hurt. But you have to experience it. You have to do it. And I said, aren't you glad that you came this particular night? Because you've been told how to do it. You just walk. Scream and holler and be afraid as you want, but you walk right up that hill. Now, I've told you, don't ever ask me again how to do it. I've told you. And it will always work. God can't fail you. What you're doing is right work, right inner spiritual work. It will succeed. That's absolute. Did I see a hand or nothing? Yes, sir.
Vernon, this ties in with what you said Wednesday night about learn to predict our reaction so then we can go against it. This follows right through.
All right. I'm walking up the hill. I can begin to see that I'm scared. I can predict what I'm going to do. I usually do, which is to run away. I'm going to do the opposite. Instead of relieving my fear over those rifles by running away, why didn't I think of this 20 years ago? I'm going to do the opposite, increase the fear. That's one thing the devil can't stand, is to see you walk right up closer. Do you know that the closer you get, look, the rifles are on, there's a wall up there, right? This is the Pike's, Pickett's charge up Gettysburg. There's the stone wall up the top of the hill up there, and there's these 1,000 rifles pointed down at you, and you walk up there shaking and terrified. The closer you get, the keener your eyesight will become because you're getting closer. And you know what you'll see? This is again the rifle. The rifle will start to tremble a little bit. It'll go down, it'll dip up and down. Just go back and forth like that. Why? Because the man in back of it is getting scared that you are calling his bluff. I'm telling you, this is what will happen to you if you keep walking. And when you get right up there, they will not only go like that, they will go bang down to the ground. Useless. Now I'll tell you, so you don't go into delusion. You understand this is one hill out of 10,000. There's 1,000 soldiers there. The next hill may have 10,000. The next one may have 20,000. But do you know if you will do this one right bit of light in you, this one little candle bit of light has more power than 10 billion dark soldiers. They have no power at all. But you have to see this by bringing your light up the hill.
Vernon, would this be applicable for human, between human beings, like relationships between human beings? If you're afraid of somebody, and do it in a right way. I don't mean to be arrogant if you're afraid of somebody, just to keep.
All right. Shall I help you, Zita?
Yeah.
All right. Suppose someone behaves badly toward you. You're in a relationship at home. At home, someone is behaving badly toward you, and you know it's bad behavior. They're thoughtless. They're careless. They think they're the only one who lives in that house, and so on. Now, I'm talking about adults, not children. This is adults. And whether it's a man or a woman, if you have any bit of light in you, you will not tolerate it. This doesn't mean you become as rude as he or she is. It doesn't mean you threaten. If you don't straighten out, it means you begin to understand how to handle that situation consciously, so that other person begins to understand that they cannot have you in their life and continue to behave as badly as they do. The time will come when you will eventually be able to speak to that person, and the first time you do, you'll be 10 yards up the hill. That is, you'll be afraid to say something to him. Look, this husband, look, if he leaves me, how do I make a living? I have no skill. I have two kids. How would I, look, my man, don't talk to me about that. I have to talk about practical things. I'm talking about a woman who wants God more than she wants her husband, you see. And so you begin to tell that other human being, whether it's a man or a woman, that you are not going to tolerate bad behavior because you don't have to live in relationship with another person who behaves that way. And so by your manner, by your words, very politely, but with authentic strength, what grows as you do it, that other person will begin to sense that you mean business, and the rifle will begin to tremble. Because all those soldiers are cowards, every single one of them. And whether he or she leaves or stays is not your concern. Your concern is to be a true man, a true woman. You find small ways where you begin to send the message to that other person, I am not going to tolerate that behavior. I don't have to live in that kind of relationship. I lived in it long enough. If you want to straighten up and be a decent human being, then you and I can have a good relationship. And that's what I would like. I would like to have a good relationship with you. But I'm not going to tolerate that sort of foolishness and that arrogance and that stupidity and that cruelty anymore. Get it through your head, and if you don't, I'll keep telling you until you do. Yes, please.
We're all rifle holders ourselves.
Pardon?
We're all rifle holders ourselves.
We are what?
We're rifle holders.
Oh, yes, of course, right. You're afraid of the reaction of that person, aren't you? You've got someone in your life, and you know it. You're afraid of that person's reaction when you start to be true. Now, don't you do it mechanically and say that you're beginning to be true. Don't you be rude to anyone. You very calmly and very quietly tell them. Do it in a small way. That's all required, is that first step up the hill at a time. That's all that's required of you. And you watch how you get scared when you take that first step. You know, look, and then you can go on again. We're here on earth for how long? 30 years, 60 years, 80 years. Fairly short time. It goes fast, doesn't it? Time goes fast. For a very short time. Are you going to use the remainder of your life pleasing a sick world or pleasing God? You make up your mind which you want to do with the rest of your life. And for your sake, make the choice of pleasing truth. Somebody's on, whoever would like to be. Leland.
go back to what Chuck was saying, certainly as we're sensitive to the world and to other people, we may, without neurotic tension being present, sense that we just simply have nothing in common with the person who happens to be there. And then, very naturally, we just go our own way. I'm not sure whether that was what Chuck was talking about or not, but perhaps it was.
Well, what you said was right, of course. Alan.
It appears that the reason you keep telling us to slow down is because it's the only way we'll see what our habits of reaction are. And we can't go against those until we see them.
Excellent. Example. Can any of us in this room begin to slow down in order, as Alan said, to watch our state in order to see our foolish, stupid, cowardly behavior at the bottom of the hill, waiting for allies, running away instead of going up the hill, taking the easy way out, fawning before people, whatever. Can't we slow down to see our behavior at the bottom of that hill in order to begin to do something different and something right? Cringing. You ladies, don't you cringe ever again before a man. Don't you ever cringe again before a man. You begin to understand why you cringe. Then you'll have the right relationship with a man. And you dumb men, don't you cringe before a woman. Your mama. Here you are, 40 years old, and you call on your mama, and she still dominates you because she's sick, as she was when you were a child. Or your father, with all his bragging about his war experiences. Don't you cringe, don't you ever cringe before any other human being again effective tonight. I didn't know. Go ahead.
What is the purpose of this pathway through ego magnetism?
I just want to hear you say that again. Would you say that again?
Well, what is the purpose of this journey through ego magnetism and attention and recognition and...
No. The purpose... Now, let's see if you can understand personally what I'm going to say to you and to the rest of you. We answered it once, but we'll say it in a different way again. The purpose is for you, Stella, to no longer suffer from being Stella. You suffer. I know you do. You know it too, don't you? The purpose of this class is for you to no longer suffer from being who you imagine you are. You don't know that you really don't exist as you imagine you do. You don't know that. It's to become another kind of a human being. And don't imagine what that is. Just take one little step at a time and it'll all become very clear to you. See you tomorrow morning at 9. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Haven't you ever noticed that when you have an experience in your life that you always refer it to yourself? I told you when you see that hearse go by, you immediately and unconsciously, by the way, personalize it. You say, well, I'm 30 now, but someday I won't be 30, and that will be me someday. Or someone else gets a new home, and yours is an older home. You say, well, isn't that nice? I wish I had a house like that, too. We personalize everything, not seeing the pain that it gives us. It's too much to go into tonight to all these details. It would take many, many lectures, many, many discussions indeed to go in this thoroughly. And I'm just hitting the bare surface of these things. But if you will begin tonight to begin to understand that you are not who you think you are, you will then understand to your sheer delight that you don't have the problems you now think you have. How many of you get lonely? You see that? Lonely? Get lonely. How many of you get mad? How many of you are jealous of someone else? How many of you are all these things but don't want to raise your hand? Right. I'm going to ask a question and then answer it myself. In fact, Leland got ahead of me. Do you like being angry? Isn't that a painful state? Doesn't that raise your blood pressure? Doesn't that take you away from your intelligence, from your sensibility when you're angry, when you're hostile? And you like, I don't get it, you like destroying yourself? You get jealous, envious. Is there not pain in envy? Nod your head. Yes. Nod your head. Yes. All right. I want to see if you're alive out there. I'm not sure. So there is pain in envy. Pain in envy, so you permit yourself to be envious and experience the pain. I don't get it. You like pain? Is that it? Huh? Yes. Leland was ahead, yes. Let me tell you why. And again, we could go on for hours on this. When you feel pained, you feel very self-important. When you are pained, the world revolves around you. I am pained because I am left out. They got that advantage. He got the raise, she got the new home. Some other woman got my man. Wait till she has him a few days. Pain is a great contribution to false self-reference. There is proper self-reference. When if you're thirsty, then you say, I want water. That is proper self-reference, obviously. We're talking about false self-reference in which you want something to give you a thrill because you don't know what else to do with the situation. Why don't you try sometime? All right, I'll give you an instruction that will change your life overnight if you'll do it, which you won't. But we've got to start somewhere. Well, let's see, I better review. How many of you get mad at any time? Any mad? You know what I mean. Just mad, plain old angry. Okay. The next time you run into a situation where you sense you're going to get angry, I tell you what I want you to do. I want you to not get angry. How many of you think you're going to do it? Don't anyone raise your hand. You see, anger being a very mechanical, unconscious reaction to the challenge out there. And since we're mechanical human beings, someone pushes the button when we react, right? You've seen this. It is very difficult at the start to begin to break the pattern of anger because this is all we know. Do you know why a coyote gets angry at the rabbit and chases it and gobbles it up? Nature made him that way. It's not evil for a coyote to chase a rabbit, but he's simply a mechanical animal, is he not? He sees the rabbit and he goes and destroys it. That's mechanical. We, as long as we're living on the certain very elementary level where we're living now, will be taken over by anger because we're simply mechanical machines. You don't believe that? You don't believe that? All right. Now, I have given you, it's not an instruction. I give every single one of you an order. Never again in your life are you to be angry. You know why you're going to fail, don't you? Because you have no control over your life at all. You have no control over your inner reaction. I order you never to be lonely again. I order you to never to get your feelings hurt again. Don't you dare get your feelings. Of course, you understand. You'll keep doing it anyway. I'm saying this in order to make you aware of the fact that you have no control of your life at all, that anyone can push a button and you react according to what button they push. And then you get either elated if they flatter you. You feel so good. Don't you feel good when you, how many of you like to get flattered? To that degree, of course, you will be depressed when the flattery is absent because you're depending on the flattery to tell you who you are. Back to original basic point. And let's see if there's one of you in this entire room who is willing to give up the very, very sick pleasure of being sick. If you do, you will be able to live a totally new kind of life in which you will be in charge of yourself instead of that world, that lunatic world out there. And that lunatic world won't be able to do to you what it is doing to you. Not that you're going to get the raise. We're not talking about that sort of thing here. We're talking about you being in so perfect a command of your life that any sickness in the lunatic world has no possibility of penetrating you because you're not on that level. Society as it now is like 10,000, now let's make that 200 cars out on a great, in an athletic stadium. These 200 cars crashing in each other, going a distance, smashing again, everybody bumping into each other. This is a perfect picture of humanity as it now is. You know this in your own human relations, do you not? Haven't you had bad human relations with other people in which you crashed with someone else, then you went your own way, and you both crashed into someone else? This is the misery of human life. And if you're sick and tired of it, I congratulate you for being here tonight, especially if you're receptive to what you're being told. So if you're tired of being crashed into by other people, you can be the airplane that is above the field. The field isn't going to change. You're not going to change your wife or husband unless they're interested in these things. You're not going to change your parents. You're not going to change your children. You're not going to change your relatives. You're not going to change anyone. Oh, you love your husband more than you love truth, do you? It's a mighty poor bargain, ladies. I'm serious, and vice versa. If you have a wife who's hostile against decency, what are you going to put first? You mean to say you're going to be a miserable, wretched little man and let that psychopathic woman drag you down to hell? You had better wake up, man. You had better snap out of it. You had better start being a man, maybe for the first time in your life. Don't you let a woman dominate you. Some of you little cowards. You'll be a real man and a real woman. Obviously, we're not taking sides. We're above the sides in this room here tonight. You'll be a real human being, a true human being who is able to say, you're not able to say it yet, you may start tonight, who's able to say, I'm leaving all that behind and I don't really know where I'm going, but I know one thing. Nothing on the face of this earth is going to stop me from the search. That is a prayer. That is a prayer that God Almighty, who really exists, hears. And he will answer that prayer, not in the way you think. Don't listen for a voice, or you'll hear your own neurosis talking. In time, you will be able to understand what it means to follow the voice of God instead of the voice of your own conditioning. And at the very start, it's very confusing, and all your friends, all your sick, evil friends will want to drag you away from this. And I'm going to tell you, don't you dare listen to them if you value your life. If you don't, then you can just toss it away as you want. Go ahead, toss it away. But if you've come to the point where you want something different, I've got the most marvelous news